So, good morning. I'm Dr. Shoma Shaha, beginning with our today's class, that is our remaining portion of the sphenoid bone. So, first of all, I would like to comment on the anatomical position of the bone. When we will hold the bone, as you have now already seen about the different parts, see how to hold the bone in the anatomical position. This bone, since it is centrally lying in the base of the skull, in between the frontal and the ethmoid in front, and the occipital bone and the temporal bone which are articulating behind, so you have to hold it symmetrically, making sure that dorsum coeli faces towards you, that is, it is the posterior aspect of the bone. The two pterygoid processes, these are the two pterygoid processes, this should lie below cerebral surface of the greater wing and the this jugum sphenoidally, followed by the sella turcica. This should be facing upwards, and anterior surface should be lying anteriorly, that is, in anterior surface it means that this area for the sphenoidal ear sinus, air concha, etc. should lie anteriorly, and this is the inferior surface of the bone. In the inferior surface you have the rostrum of the sphenoid under articulation of the vomer. This one part of a vomer is attached to here, so this should be placed inferiorly. So this is the anatomical position of the sphenoid in the uh, since it is a central bone, we will hold it by the two greater wings like this. Now we are coming back to our previous discussion, that is, we had to discuss about these two pterygoid plates, and I will also show some attachments of the spine with some diagrams today so that we can understand better. So first of all, let me just go back for recapitulation in the spine attachments. Now we have already told the spine of the sphenoid, it gives attachments to two muscles and three ligaments. So it is also in relation with two very important nerves, that is the chorda tympani nerve and the auriculotemporal nerve. So the spine of the sphenoid, if we look what are the two muscle attachments, let us just see this diagram. So as you can see here that we have already tried to make a schematic sketch. In this you can see that this is this handle of the malleus, this is malleus bone, which is actually a ear ossicle, and here is part of this lateral pterygoid plate. This is the auditory tube which actually remains under surface in relation with the sulcus tubi on the undersurface of the base of the skull, and here it is the spine of the sphenoid. And from the lateral pterygoid plate, today we will be discussing the muscles attached. So one muscle that we will see, and that one we can find that this one is the spine of the sphenoid. So it gives attachment to tensor veli palatini muscle and also to the tensor tympani muscle, and relation are with the two nerves, that is the chorda tympani and the auriculotemporal nerve, in relation to the spine. And from spine radiates the three ligaments which we can see. First ligament, that is towards this anterior ligament of malleus from the spine of the sphenoid up to the malleus. Second, there is the pterygospinous ligament. Pterygospinous ligament will go to attach on the tubercle on the posterior border of this one is the lateral pterygoid plate. And third, we will have that one, this is the long ligament which is extending up to the lingula of the mandible. This is in dotted lines we have represented the mandible. In the mandible, inner surface of mandible, just mandibular foramen is guarded by lingula, bony spicule, and this is attached by the pterygospinous ligament. And tensor veli palatini is actually winding around the hook of this hamulus, pterygoid hamulus. It winds around the pterygoid hamulus, and just because this of these two muscles attachment, so this actually shows you or depicts you the attachments and the relationships of the schematic diagram for the spine. Now let us see what are the different features of these two pterygoid plates. So in the pterygoid plate you have one lateral pterygoid plate, this is the lateral pterygoid, and this one is the medial pterygoid. And if you see the lateral pterygoid plate, you find that it is slightly large and quadrilateral in shape, and it has one anterior border and one posterior border. And if you find the medial pterygoid plate, in the medial pterygoid plate, this is actually slight elongated one. Here pterygoid hamulus is not visible, so in order to show you pterygoid hamulus, I am going back to the base of the skull. So we are seeing the undersurface of the base of the skull. This is the hard palate actually, it is, and by the maxilla, and here is actually the pterygoid processes which are attached. In the pterygoid process we can see that there is the presence of this medial and the lateral pterygoid processes. Yes, so this one is actually the pterygoid hamulus, which is extending from where? It is extending from this, the medial aspect of the medial pterygoid plate. So the medial pterygoid plate and the lateral pterygoid plate, now we will have to learn about the attachments. Now if you see the anterior border of the posterior, this lateral pterygoid plate, this is lateral pterygoid plate, and in the anterior border it is actually going to form a relation with this the pterygomaxillary fissure, because here lies, this is the maxilla, this is the body, posterior surface of body of maxilla, and here the pterygoid plate. So in between there is this pterygomaxillary fissure, and we are going here into the, this is the pterygopalatine fossa. So pterygopalatine fossa being led to by the pterygomaxillary fissure, and anterior boundaries of these areas is the bone of the maxilla, and posteriorly lies actually the pterygoid plate of the sphenoid bone. So pterygomaxillary fissure leads into this pterygopalatine fossa. So the anterior margin of the lateral pterygoid plate is free, and also posterior margin is also free, and in posterior margin we will have this tubercle, this is in the middle border, which will go to attachment towards the, this one is the spine of the sphenoid, as I have already told you that this articulates here with this the pterygospinous ligament. And lateral pterygoid plate, we consider the lateral pterygoid plate as one muscle plate. Why? Because it gives attachment on the lateral aspect, it gives attachment, this is the lateral surface, to the upper heads and the lower head of the lateral pterygoid muscle. And in the medial surface of the lateral pterygoid plate, this is the medial surface, if you look, so in the medial surface it is actually giving attachment to the medial surface, this gives attachment to this one, this is the medial surface, and this is actually giving attachment to the medial pterygoid muscle. So we consider it as a muscle plate, because on either side of it are the two pterygoid muscles. Lateral side we have the lateral pterygoid muscle, and the medial side we have the medial pterygoid. And the two pterygoid plates, they are separated by one scaphoid fossa. So I have tried to put the wire in the scaphoid fossa. We can see in the scaphoid fossa what muscle origins, that is the tensor veli palatini. And not only here, tensor veli palatini also takes to origin from this one, that is the spine of the sphenoid region, from the region of the spine of the sphenoid, and also from the scaphoid fossa. This originates, and it will come around this, the tendon passes around anteriorly, back downwards, and it winds around the pterygoid hamulus. Pterygoid hamulus is much visible on this side. This one is the pterygoid hamulus, if we can see. Yes. So the tendon of the pterygoid hamulus will be this one, and from here it is actually, it is winding around. So medial pterygoid plate, on the medial aspect, if we find the medial pterygoid plate, it is actually a part of the nasal cavity, so covered by the mucoperiosteum of nasal cavity medially, and lateral side it is in relation with this tensor veli palatini muscle, which wind around the pterygoid hamulus to go to be attached to the palatine aponeurosis. Right, here lies the hard palate, and from here will be the soft palate starting, and that is palatine aponeurosis, and from here this pterygoid up to this winding around pterygoid hamulus, tensor veli palatini muscle goes to be attached to the palatine aponeurosis. So that is about this. And not only that, one another important thing that I must mention here, that is the pterygomandibular raphe. I'm slightly turning the bone so it will be visible for us to visualize this. Yes, this one is the pterygoid hamulus that we can see here. This one is the pterygoid hamulus. So from the pterygoid hamulus not only gives attachment to the pterygomandibular raphe, but it also gives attachment to the superior constrictor, the pharyngobasilar fascia and the buccopharyngeal fascia. And pterygomandibular raphe, other end of it will be starting from pterygoid hamulus and it will be going to attach in the mandible. Where in the mandible? That is in between the insertions of superior constrictor and buccinator. There is the attachment of the pterygomandibular raphe. So we can now again revert back to some diagrams, and that will be helpful for us to understand. So this is the relation of the sphenoid bone and the mandibular ramus we have tried to depict here. And in this, what we are seeing that we have tried to draw this part of the temporal plate. We have tried to draw, this is the temporal surface of the greater wing of the sphenoid, and it is, this one is the lateral pterygoid plate, and we are seeing here that on the tubercle, this is the tubercle. So from here the pterygomandibular raphe will extend. This is mandible. In the mandible we have drawn the schematically the head of mandible, the neck of mandible, and this is the extending body ramus which is extending downwards in the angle. And here you can see the two muscles attachment have been shown. So this is the upper head of the lateral pterygoid and this one is the lower head of the lateral pterygoid muscle. And lateral pterygoid muscle is attached along the lateral surface and also just underneath the infratemporal crest, that is in the infratemporal fossa region, upper head, and on the lateral pterygoid plate lateral surface is the lower head. And here is the articulation of the pyramidal process of the palatine. So this is a left lateral view that we are seeing of the lateral pterygoid plate and attachment of this pterygoid muscle from the mandible, as also we are seeing it on the sphenoid bone. Now we will have to see about the medial pterygoid. So come to the medial pterygoid plate. What you can see in the diagram that I have tried to depict here, it is the medial pterygoid plate. I have tried to divide it into two sides. One is the medial side and another is the lateral side. In the lateral, medially, it is in relation with the mucoperiosteum of the nasal cavity because it is forming part of the nasal cavity. And this is actually scaphoid fossa. Scaphoid fossa remains in the junction in between the two pterygoid plates, and from here is arising tensor veli palatini, which is hooking round the pterygoid hamulus. This is the processus tubarius. Processus tubarius is it is a small projection from the posterior border of the medial pterygoid plate, that is processus tubarius, and it is for this lodgement of this auditory tube. The cartilaginous part of it is extending from here. So this is about this, and we can also have a slight revision about the in the infratemporal fossa, how it is related. So the this is with the sphenoid, in relation with the sphenoid, we are seeing that the actually this mandibular ganglion, the otic ganglion, etc., you will learn later on. So medial pterygoid and all these are in relation to this part. So now we are completing about the discussion of the bone. So I will just complete it with the ossification. Now we have divided ossification of the sphenoid into two zones. One is pre-sphenoidal part and by the post-sphenoidal part, and that is done by the tuberculum celli itself. So at birth, if you see, The sphenoid is not a single piece of bone, it is having three pieces, and this is the area of the lesser wing and the body. We are finding that this is the body and this is the lesser wing, and these are the greater wing and pterygoid process. So this is the tuberculum celli, and tuberculum celli divides it into the two areas: pre-sphenoidal part, which is anterior to tuberculum celli; post-sphenoidal part, which is posterior to the tuberculum celli. So what happens that we will see what are the centers, just a recapitulation. And so this pre-sphenoidal part having the 6 centers for ossification, one each for the lesser wing, 2 for anterior part of body, and 1 each for the sphenoidal concha. So total that makes up 6 cartilaginous center for the pre-sphenoidal part. Lesser wings, anterior part of body, that is the 2 lesser wings, each lesser wings you will have the centers, then you will have for the anterior part of the body, another 2 center, and also for the sphenoidal concha are actually present anteriorly, so for the anteriorly it will be there. And post-sphenoidal part, the post-sphenoidal part is actually, it is membranocartilaginous, it has 8 centers of ossification. So there will be greater wings, for the 2 greater wings 1 each. Then for posterior part of the body, this is the body, and from tuberculum celli backwards the posterior part of body, for that we have 2 centers. Then for each medial pterygoid plate we will again have the centers, and also we will have the centers for the lingular region. So this one, that is the post-sphenoidal part of the sphenoid, it is about it is actually membranocartilaginous in ossification. So after having discussed about most of the bony features of the sphenoid bone, I am just giving you one recapitulation of all the foramens and different nerves and the fossas that are related with this bone. So to start with, we will have to come back again to the base of the skull. So again we are coming back to the base of the skull, and what are the bony cavities which are formed here. So the bony cavities, if you can see, these are, it is trying to contribute to formation of anterior cranial fossa, to the middle cranial fossa, then to the hypophyseal fossa, right, and also to the roof floor of the temporal fossa. If you just turn it by the side, you will find that it is trying to form this the temporal fossa, and also by the temporal fossa it is also helping to form part of the infratemporal fossa region. This is the infratemporal fossa area, and several important nerves are related. What are those? These are the most of the cranial nerves are related. So here the cribriform plate of ethmoid, relation with the olfactory tracts above the jugum sphenoidally. This one jugum sphenoidally, above it lies the 2 olfactory tracts. Then there is optic nerve in the optic canal, right side, this one the right optic canal, and this one the left optic canal. And then we will have through the superior orbital fissure. If we want to see the superior orbital fissure, I will have to turn the skull round like this. So we can see that this one is the superior orbital fissure, right. So this is the superior orbital fissure, and through here, as we have already told you, that is there are the 3rd, 4th and the 6th nerves. 3 branches of lacrimal, frontal and nasociliary nerves, they pass of the ophthalmic division of the 5th cranial nerve. Then also we have the maxillary nerve, maxillary division, it goes through the foramen rotundum. This is the foramen rotundum, and again this is the foramen ovale. So from here goes the mandibular nerve, that is the sensory division and the motor roots of the mandibular, along with the lesser petrosal nerve. And then we again have the foramen spinosum behind. So in the foramen spinosum we will have the nervus spinosus, and in relation to this we go back to our original bone. This is the spine of the sphenoid. In relation to the spine of the sphenoid, you will have chorda tympani nerve medial to sphenoidal spine, just medial aspect, this is related with the chorda tympani nerve, and lateral aspect it is related with the auriculotemporal nerve, and also through the palatino-vaginal canal. So you'll have to turn this like that, and these are the vomerovaginal and the palatino-vaginal canals area. So here it is related with the pharyngeal nerves. So this completes about our overall view of this bone. So thank you, and if any queries are there, you may ask us.